everybody, and welcome to the Dead Unicorn, the tabletop role-playing game club. My name is Corey, and I'm here with Tarek, who is, really focused right now. He's really in the zone. He's got things he needs to do, and he's doing them now. In fact, we are working on our rewrite of Legend of the Five Rings. It's our 15th part in this series, and we're still working on weapons. We've done all of the swords here. And I think there's a couple things we need to adjust with the swords, but other than that, we're going to be moving on to axes and maces and pole arms and feathers on sticks. They will tickle you to death.
They will.
So let's talk about the comments from last time. We have a single comment.
Ooh, okay.
So we will go to our community page. If you comment on our video, we will read it. Until the point in time when the comments get way too overwhelming for us. But in our last video, it says, you did not remove the two-handed profile from the wakizashi. But that's the most ridiculous weapon rule I've ever seen in an RPG. There's no meaningful way to wield a wakizashi in two hands. Completely improbable, and it makes no sense. Opinions?
I disagree. You can always hand and a half it.
Uh-huh. Here's the thing. I looked up, I was like, is that true? So I looked it up, and the tsuba, or the hilt, of a katana and a wakizashi are the exact same size. There's no difference in it. They are both a hand and a half weapons, which means it is viable to use a wakizashi in two hands. It is lighter, meaning there are more options. It's faster, and there are more options when using it with one hand. So I see the benefits of using it with one hand. But you get more power with two hands.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something else. Something else you may not know about one-handed to two-handed weapons. When one-handing a sword, you get more range in that sword than you would if you two-handed that sword.
True. Real and true.
So I was thinking, if we're going to marry the range or the area which the weapon threatens to our threat rating, which is what we're replacing damage with, maybe we can make some changes to things that can be one-handed. So, for example, on a wakizashi, wielding it with one hand might give it +1 threat.
Because you can strike out technically a little farther.
Exactly, because you can strike out just
You're not bound by the two-handed reach. You're bound by the one-handed reach.
Right.
And the lunge. Yeah.
And
I see the same thing. It works the same way as a katana in that sense of you can strike from 0 to 2, or actually I'd say 0 to 1 with a wakizashi, where a katana can go from 1 to 2 at the maximum.
I think anything that can be one-handed should be able to get that +1 to
range.
Not range, because you're not like a katana in one hand can't go as far as a polearm, I would think, right? Could it?
I mean, a polearm. So the thing is, most polearms can be wielded in one hand unless they're cumbersome, right? If they're cumbersome, you need two hands. They only have a two-handed profile. But if you have a one-handed profile on like a, let's say, Yari, the typical technique to extend the range is to just push it out with just one hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which means you're not as deadly with it, but you have more threat with it.
Yeah, it is more range. Yeah.
So, I don't want to, because the range areas are about 5 feet hexes or 5 feet squares.
Mm-hmm.
So using one hand to two-handed, I don't think making it one-handed would necessarily get you another 5 feet. But I think it's enough to justify a +1 threat. Because if we're saying that a weapon with a bigger threat range, or a bigger range, gives you +2 per threat range of the difference in weapons, right? That means
we should talk about this more, because in polearms,
I want to talk about this more. Exactly, that's what we're doing.
Well, because of what I say is, in polearms, if you go on the sheet, Bacento, if you wield the Bacento in one hand, it is. I gotta mute Sasha. Sorry. If you wield a Bacento in one hand, it changes the range value from 2 to 1.
That makes no sense.
We're
gonna have to change that.
But it's because it's cumbersome, so you can't extend the range at which you strike with it in one hand as far as you could with two hands.
Oh, I get it now.
Because of how a Bacento, you know how a Bacento is. It's like a big ass fucking like fat sword that's half the weapon, and the other half of the weapon is handle. And so if you're wielding it in one hand, the sword, you're just using the blade. You can't really use the haft of the Bacento from the back end.
Got
like
it.
You could
it
with
is
the Yari.
Because of that thick blade. It's more
it's
top heavy.
Weighted. Yeah, exactly. So if you're wielding it in one hand, you're holding it right behind the blade to try to hold the balance there. You can't strike as far. So it's like a regular sword in that sense. But as soon as you use it two-handed, then it gets extra damage instead of deadliness, which is weird as well, because I would think that weapon would be way more deadly when you put it in two hands, not way more damaging. But yeah, it's like a potentially one-handable version of a Naginata.
I get it now. I get it. Okay, so
there
are exceptions.
What I'm saying is, exactly, the conception is already there. We can just kind of work around with that range property, or even just make that range property a threat property instead.
Well, that's what I've made that. Don't you remember the rule that I made?
Yes, but I'm saying instead of replacing it in the one-handed section, instead of saying it's range 1, then drop its threat to 1, right? We have a threat value. If that Bacento's wielded in one hand, the threat value goes down by 1 instead of going up by 1.
Yes, we could do that. We could definitely do that.
But it also makes sense to have it as range and have the range go down to 1, because
if the range goes down to 1,
trying to strike it 2.
If the range goes down to a range 1, that decreases the threat of the weapon.
Yes, but you were saying the opposite isn't true. Not necessarily, right? So if you're wielding a wakizashi in two hands, then the range stays the same. But if you wield it in one hand, the range goes up.
The range goes up.
Or the range stays the same, but the threat goes up, right? Because you don't want it hitting
the range
further away.
Yeah, exactly. The range stays the same, but the threat goes up, because you don't get an extra 5 feet from one-handing a weapon, but you do get extra range, and since range is tied to threat, you just get a +1.
Yeah.
But if you get an entire range category, you get a +2, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that idea.
You see where
the
we're
only
going?
thing that I would say is like short swords were effective like messers for a reason, because you could lunge with them easier with a single hand and then extend that range out. It's usually like a few inches more, not like a 5 feet more.
Exactly. That's why I'm like +1 threat if you use one-handed.
Yeah.
So now
I think that works.
So in the game,
Ijitsu is supposed to be able to strike out at range 2. Every Ijitsu technique extends that range value from 1 to 2.
So in the game, as it is right now, a katana, if you wield it in one hand, no changes. But if you wield it in two-hand, it gets +2 deadliness. No one ever wields their katana in one hand if that's the only weapon that they have.
Unless it's for an
Ijutsu trick. Yeah. Otherwise, that just doesn't happen. Here now,
most people want the extra deadliness.
By making one-handed have something and two-handed have something, now people are like thinking, what's the best strategy to use right
orientation now in this moment? Yeah,
right. Am I going for a critical strike right now, or am I just going for some threat,
getting some damage on some people?
To wear them down with fatigue? And I think this is a really great rule.
Yeah.
So and while there are exceptions to it, I think one-handing a weapon that has a two-handed feature gives +1 threat. So we'll give this to the katana, the wakizashi, the jian, yeah, and the bokken. I think this is a really great idea. Oh, do we want to do capital T's on threat?
Yeah, I just
or threat +1, not +1 threat. Yeah.
Consistent because they were all deadliness +1.
+2, yeah. I see that now. Okay.
Okay, and the rest of them, they just keep their normal profile, right?
They just keep their normal profile.
And then so we left off there. And then I filled out the axes and below for the new one because we just did the stuff. So let's
just double check these and then check them against what it says in the book to see if this makes sense. So I'm going to Masakari. We're going to do
these are all based on the book.
I'm going to do a search for Masakari, and look, I get a really cool what is this called? A BattleTech mech. There's a BattleTech mech that looks like that is called a Masakari. That's cool. Is it a heavy? It looks a lot like a Daishi with a different cockpit. A Masakari is just a freaking axe. It's a hatchet.
It's a hatchet, yeah.
It's a hatchet. It can be I guess it can be two-handed, right? Not two-handed. Yeah. Can it be two-handed?
No, one-handed. It's only one-handed.
It is only a one-handed weapon, yet it says here it can be two-handed.
It's a one-handed weapon, but you could hand it a half it. So, but its profile in the book is 1 to 2-handed.
Okay, this is what I'm gonna say about a Masakari being wielded two-handed. I'm gonna reduce its range in two hands to zero only. Cause my God, where are you putting your other hand? Right below the head. Mm-hmm. That you're gonna get nothing. You have to. This two-handing it does not only seems like a very up close and personal thing. One-handed.
I also think that should be a throwable weapon.
I think it should be throwable too. It does seem like what's the length on these? Is there? Can we see one with something else next to it?
At most 2 feet. At most.
Okay. Ooh. 3D models of BattleTech mechs. I'm getting the willies over here. Yeah, I'm seeing it next to a person's hand. That's about 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet, if that. So what I'm going to say, what I think these rules should be for Masakari is nothing for one-handing it. For two-handing it, range 0, +2 deadliness.
And then, yeah.
Yeah. So you can't use it at range 1 with two hands. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But we can give it the thrown quality.
We can give it the thrown. Is there a thrown quality? Is that a quality of
I mean, we can make it quality, but there is a throne quality for things like shuriken.
Okay.
When you give it the throne quality, let me look up what the quality does.
I'm sure it gives you a range on how far it can be thrown.
I'm sure it does too. I just gotta find it. Or did they actually put it
I don't
under the
think there was a
shuriken?
quality for it. I think it was just.
It just says throne. I think there's a quality for it. The throne.
If not, I think it deserves a quality.
No, it does not. It does not actually go into detail about what that means. What throne means.
Subtle. Nope, there's no throne quality. It goes from subtle to unholy.
It does. It does show a throne quality under shuriken.
Let's see
Shuriken
here.
has a throne, one-handed
Blowgun,
throne.
comma, Kasirigama,
Oh, it
Shuriken.
does. It says martial arts range
It's
1
under.
to 3.
It's under grip. It's not under
Yeah.
qualities. It's under grip. You want to know something? Let's remove it from grip and make it a quality.
There you go. Actually, let's do 1 to 2. You
I think.
can throw it from range 1 to 2.
Yeah, sure.
Range 3 seems a bit far for an axe. Maybe you could do range 3. What do you think? Range 1 to 2 or 1 to 3? Because a shuriken goes out to range 3. But a shuriken is small
It's
and carries its
small.
weight really well.
Yeah. Yeah, make it range 2. Because at range 3, now it's like kind of easier to dodge and whatnot. And you can always increase ranges of things by using opportunity.
Okay, I'm gonna add this to qualities.
Yeah.
Bro.
Qualities, thrown. This weapon may be thrown with martial arts ranged with no penalty. With the range equal to X. Yes, perfect. Perfection. Love it.
Maybe there could be a special thing of opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Opportunity increase
The
range.
range increases by 1. There you go.
Love it. Okay.
But I like it also only having the one opportunity to increase it by 1.
By 1
We
range.
could give another weapon like a extra thing that makes it easier to throw.
Not 1 plus, just once.
Just once. You
Love
can do it once.
Okay. An Ono. I believe that's a. What is an Ono?
Big axe. That's a battle axe. That's
Ono
the big old
axe.
battle axe. That's the thing that Hida what is his name? It was the other son of Oshi. Kuroda. That's what Kuroda wielded, I believe.
Okay.
Big
It's
old
just
battle axe.
it's just a big axe.
Mm-hmm.
So
Battle axe.
a Masakari has a deadliness of 4 that can be increased to 6. And an
Yeah.
Ono has a 6.
Because it's a two-handed weapon. It's war gear. It's much longer haft to stretch out, almost like a pole axe in nature.
Do we want to bring the Ono's deadliness up to a 7 just to edge it out over a Masakari?
Yeah, I think that's the flat one. We had been giving +2 to these things.
Yeah.
I'd
yeah.
also say an Ono could be razor edged
Sure. Yeah.
if we wanted, because it makes sense for a battle axe like that to have a razor edge. Um, or we could leave it at just war gear and give it
Give it Giant Slayer 1.
okay, yeah, that works too. Boom.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that'll make it more like Crab use these. You'd think that they use these against Oni that are bigger than them.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay.
I like it.
All right, a club. The deadliness of 2 on a club is bad. Let's bring that up to
Yeah, and the
4.
fact that it gives damage of 1, I think it should be threat of
Deadliness.
1.
Not threat.
Two-handed increase the deadliness of 1.
Yeah. So I'm gonna bring the club up to a 4, I think.
Yeah, 4 is decent,
Um,
and it goes up to 5 if you're two-handing it. Also, I would say range of 0 if you're two-handing it, because clubs aren't that long; they're like a bludgeon.
yeah.
So
range 0.
and then we can say range 1.
Well, here's
0 to 1 and one-handed.
Do we want to give it +1 threat at if we give it +1 threat with one hand, then don't make it range 0 at with 2 hands.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I think that's good. So threat +1 at one-handed, and then deadliness +1 at two-handed.
Yes.
That fits.
Yep, and it's mundane. Yes. Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, this makes it more like a baseball bat, and I feel like that works.
I have to say, I hear me out. We have Giant Slayer, right?
Yeah.
How about like Dwarf
Armor
Slayer?
Smasher.
I'm not going to say Armor Smasher. I'm going to say something more like because like plated armor, which is kind of what samurai use, is very, very good at deflecting
Swords.
blunt attacks. We got somebody talking to us on the chat. I gotta read this. I totally spaced on it. Still catching up from the last video. It looks like you're keeping deadlines even though you've changed damage to threat. You are keeping deadlines. Don't know.
Oh, deadliness.
Oh, deadliness. Yes, we're keeping deadliness, but we have changed damage to threat because threat damage sounds like you're taking wounds. Every time I say take damage, people are like, I hit him. I took No. We're changing that to threat. You take a threat, and that becomes fatigue.
Yeah.
You are staving off
to defend against the threat, and that takes fatigue.
That's right. It's a better word that
You're
makes
taking
things...
fatigue to overcome the threat that you're being presented with.
And then
but the deadliness is still deadly. It still can be lethal to get hit as a critical strike, because you will take like actual wounds then.
I'm very interested in Giant Slayer properties. So I was saying, should there be a reverse of Giant Slayer, like Dwarf Slayer? Or maybe Goblin Slayer? Things that are
Small Basher.
Things that are below Silhouette 2.
Beater upper of small things.
Yeah. And maybe clubs are really good at like smashing those smaller guys.
Yeah.
So do we want to call it Dwarf Slayer? Do we want to call it Goblin Slayer? Do we want to call it Mouse Slayer? Do we want to call what
Cudgel. I want to come up with a term that is more specific to these blunt weapons.
No, because I want to give knives those things too. Like a small knife could be very much like a goblin's attacking you. You know, something great for smaller.
I don't know. I feel like a knife would be great for a goblin to use to smash a human with.
True enough.
So maybe in the hands of a small person, it becomes a giant slayer weapon.
I'm just saying that a club, or anything that attacking like a small does more damage or threat or whatever to a smaller thing, should have. I mean, blunt weapons do that, but because they have wider surface areas, which means these things that are usually
it's easier to hit.
Exactly. So, I'm sure there are other weapons besides just blunt ones that might have this quality, is what I'm saying. So if we make it exclusive to blunt, I think we're hamstringing us. So I would like to call it, I don't want to call it Dwarf Slayer. For the reasons that dwarves are people.
So let's call Giant Slayer Oni Slayer, and let's call the Dwarf Slayer, quote unquote, Goblin Slayer.
Okay.
That way it gives you a visual representation, like a mental image of like big thing go smash or small thing go smash, right?
Yeah, and it's more fair? It's got more L5R flavor to it. My biggest pause on that would be like, I think if we call something Oni Slayer, it's going to give the idea that if it's not an Oni, it doesn't work. That's why I kind of like Giant Slayer.
Yes, but the actual title, or like the quality, will have a clarification there that it's anything with silhouette of over 2, right?
Yes.
Or under 2.
No, over 2 for Giant Slayer or Oni Slayer,
and then under 2 for
goblins. Yeah. Exactamundo.
Got it. So that should replace all of the Giant Slayer to Oni Slayer. Yep. And then we can add here mundane Goblin Slayer. And then we'll give that a Goblin Slayer value of what, 1?
Yeah.
And let me go down here and make a Goblin Slayer.
Oh, hold on. Let me get it back to. Yeah, sorry guys. Yeah. Also, still catching up. Very interested in Giant Slayer properties. I like the idea. Yeah, I do too. You're preaching to the choir. I'm glad you like these ideas that we're coming up with.
Okay, so feature below.
And these qualities make, I think, weapon selection
way more
meaningful. Yeah, the fact that a lot of these weapons are kind of samey, really, like, I get crestfallen at that. I'm just like, okay, just pick the one with the biggest number wins. And now we're doing things that have certain situational qualities. I love it. I think that's great.
Okay, so Craftsman's Hammer is the next thing.
So hammer is hammer.
It's just a basic hammer. There is a bigger hammer, which is the Otsuchi, and a bigger club, which is the Tetsubo.
I don't understand why a Craftsman hammer would be two-handed.
Well, it's a hammer though. It's a simple hammer that is used for driving nails and spikes for other construction work. You could use it two-handed, but I'd say a hammer that's two-handed is much like a Masakari that's two-handed. Range 0 plus 2 deadliness.
Let's bring the. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm going to bring the deadliness up to 4. And then we'll Goblin Slayer 1 it.
Yeah.
There.
I think that works.
Okay, a Kiseru.
Pipe. It's just a pipe.
Yeah, it's
a blunt pipe. It's the metal pipes that you use to smoke opium. So,
yep.
And then you can bonk people with it.
So these are not Goblin Slayer weapons because they're too skinny.
Yeah, they're not Goblin Slayer weapons. They are concealable, and I'd like to see them have a deadliness of 3 instead of 2. But
Sure.
I think that's it. I think that's all we need to do.
What's the range
Range
on
0,
these?
it's real close. 0.
Okay.
You have to hit them in person, and it's only one-handed because it's a pipe. But it's a little pipe you can knock somebody over the head with. It's probably not going to do much, but there you go. You got one.
It is a makeshift weapon.
The Keru are renowned for using these in combat, and they used to have like special techniques to blow flames out of them.
Ooh.
Or ashes and dust to like blind their opponent. So they used to have a cool technique for it, but I think this is good for now. Otsuchi. This is the big hammer. This is your war hammer.
Wow, I'm not getting...
Only in a two-handed profile. You cannot use it in one hand. It's cumbersome. War gear. Range 1, and I think it deserves to have Goblin Slayer 2.
So I'm trying to look this up, and all I'm getting is Tetsubo's. That's a comma. No, I don't see anything. So let's read the description.
Hear me out. I know what this is. An Otsuchi is the massive hammer. It's like a woodcutter's axe, but larger, deadlier, and obviously, there's a carpenter's hammer as the Otsuchi, or sorry, the Ono is to a woodcutter's axe. So it's just a battle axe.
It's a maul.
It's a battle. Yes, exactly.
It's a maul. It's what Hidouchi uses.
It's a war hammer. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's what Hidouchi uses.
It's not a war hammer. It's a maul. War hammers are skinny things with little pikes at the
correct.
Mauls are giant. That's Harley Quinn uses a maul.
Right. Yeah, it's a maul. I'd say it's Goblin Slayer 2, Oni Slayer 1.
I think so too. I think it does both well.
I think it does both well, and it has a deadliness, I'd say, of like 6 or 6 or 7 off the bat, because it's comparable to an Ono. Actually, let's make it 6, because an Ono is 7 and Oni Slayer 1, and has better range. So let's not over damage the maul, because it gets Goblin Slayer 2 and Oni Slayer 1.
Exactly, which brings down its
cumbersome.
So I would make its deadliness like 6.
Yeah, 5 or 6 I think is
5
good.
or 6 somewhere in there. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, let's go with 6 for now. It is way more expensive than an Ono at 30 koku for no apparent reason. The hammer.
All the steel that's in it. You gotta.
I guess.
I don't know.
It's war gear.
Yes,
it's got
war gear.
Cumbersome, which means it's harder to wield unless you're a crab. You can't wield Otsuchi and have heavy armor, which I don't unless you're a crab. I guess that makes sense, because a crab can wield 2 cumbersome things. If you're a Hida, you can wield 2 cumbersome things.
Armor and use cumbersome weapons.
You can't use 2 cumbersome items. You can't use a cumbersome armor and cumbersome weapon and move and attack in the same round.
Interesting.
Yeah. Cumbersome is really, really, really limiting.
Cumbersome. It says this item is heavy and unwieldy and impossible to conceal while wearing cumbersome armor. The TN of your checks to maneuver in your environment is increased by 1. If you move this turn, your attacks are increased by 1. It does not say you cannot use 2 cumbersome weapons, 2 cumbersome items at the same time.
That is very true, but you take huge penalties for doing anything if you're wearing both.
True.
But a crab, a Hitabushi specifically, gets to ignore the cumbersome quality of one of the items that they're wielding.
Neat. I love it.
So if they're using armor and they have a cumbersome weapon, they're only taking the penalty from the cumbersome weapon or the cumbersome armor, not both. I mean, you don't want to use both. You know what I mean? You're at a marked disadvantage if you're using both.
It's interesting that the Ono doesn't have cumbersome, and I think that's because of the weight of a maul.
Distribution. Yeah. It's definitely the distribution of weight. Um, though I would say the Ono, in my opinion, off of the basic statistics, is probably better because it's cheaper and it's very effective. The Otsuchi is good if you're looking to do like a if you're looking at a variety of damage to do. You want to like have the ability to target both small and large creatures. Does decent damage. It doesn't do as it's not as deadly as an Ono, but if you're fighting things bigger or smaller than you, it's great. But I think that 30 koku needs to be dropped down because a katana is 20 koku,
Sure.
right? A scimitar is 20 koku for some reason. An odachi is also 20 koku. But Otsuchi, Maul is 30 koku, which is weird to me.
Okay, 20, I guess.
Yeah, it's put it in the same like cost category as a Tetsubo. I think that makes sense.
So I gave.
I also think Oni Slayer 2 for Tetsubo is perfect.
I gave Tetsubo a deadliness of 6 and made it Oni Slayer 2.
I think it should also be Goblin Slayer 1.
I disagree.
It should be the exact opposite of the Otsuchi.
I disagree.
Because
I don't think it should get any Goblin.
Well.
I don't think it should get any Goblin Slayer.
Why? It's a club but bigger. And the club gets Goblin
Yeah,
Slayer
okay.
1.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
I think it just should get Goblin Slayer 1.
Yeah,
and
Goblin Slayer
2,
1.
Because it's better at breaking armor, and great at breaking skulls of small creatures. But it's not as well balanced to fight another person with a sword. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So giving it Goblin Slayer 1, I don't think breaks the bank here.
I like how it says durable. And with my experience with Tetsubos, the only Tetsubo I've ever seen wielded, I think was in
Shattered.
Deadly. Yeah, all of the little steel balls popped out of it when it struck the dummy. And I was like, is that normal? I think it was Deadliest Warrior where I saw that.
I think it was I saw it used in a what is it called? It's a blacksmithing competition. And they have to all blacksmith a specific item from history, and I think that's the show. It's like something in steel. I don't remember what it is, but it was on the History Channel too.
Maybe that's what I saw. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you remember Deadliest Warrior on Spike TV though?
Forged in Fire.
Maybe that's it.
I think that's what it's called.
Have you ever seen the Deadliest Warrior series on Spike TV?
Oh yeah, hell yeah! I watched all of them.
I know.
I watched every single episode.
I don't know how we've run all the numbers and we've crunched it and ran the simulation 100 times.
We talked to the guys who do Total War, and this is what we got. Yeah. They had the little Total War characters, remember, that would go and fight in the battlefield? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I remember. I watched the crap out of that show.
It was fun. I don't know how realistic it was, but it was super fun to watch, like fun. Samurai or like Spartan warrior versus ninja. Like,
yeah,
so good.
Okay, so
Jite, range 0, deadliness. Oh my god, these deadlinesses for a knife is 2?
Well, yeah, it's a knife, but it's a blunted knife because it's specifically designed to catch weapons.
Oh yeah, it is. So let's bring that down to 4.
And then snaring.
We have to do something about snaring. We have to rewrite snaring from the ground up. I'm going to read you what snaring does, and you're gonna guffaw. You're going to chortle at how bad it is. Here we go. Flexible, or in some cases harshly curved weapons are excellent for snaring, grabbing, and disarming. When performing an action with a snaring weapon, you may spend opportunity as follows. 1 target of the attack with vigilance lower or equal to the opportunity spent this way suffers the immobilized condition.
So what I think we should do is separate snaring and disarming.
Right. Here's the thing. Curved weapons are excellent for snaring, grabbing and disarming. Where's the rules for disarming in any of that?
Yeah.
Right? So
I agree.
all it does
So
is
let's make it
immobilize somebody,
disarming.
and the immobilized condition can be removed instantly just by not doing anything for one round.
Yeah. When performing an attack action
Did we change immobilized in these
with
rules?
a
I think we did.
disarming weapon, you may spend opportunity
Unconscious,
as follows.
wounded, prone, compromised.
Up.
No, I don't think we did anything. Immobilized. We did change immobilized. Remove when a TN versus the event that immobilized the character is met, depending on the situation. For example, a grapple will be against an NPC, but will be bound. But being bound will be against a static NPC. See grappling rules. We were going to make an entire grappling system.
Yes.
Excellent. So, snaring and disarming, two different things. I do believe I want to say that I made.
You did, and I'm stealing it exactly, word for word. It's spend opportunity equal to the target's vigilance and disarm their weapon.
Excellent.
Their weapon is disarmed. I would say, additionally, if the amount of opportunity spent this way exceeds the opponent's vigilance by one or more, you have a free hand, and you have a free hand, you may take the weapon into your free hand as part of the action. There you go, disarming. And then now GT has the disarming quality.
Yay, and it should not have the snaring quality.
It should not, because it is not designed to snare a person necessarily. It's designed to snare a weapon.
Exactamundo.
So now we have a disarming quality and we have a snaring quality, which will be the exact same thing, but for capturing a person.
All right. Now we go to knife. Knives have deadliness as a 5, not 4. It is concealed. It's mundane. Is it two-handed?
Hold on. Knife is not. It is just. Oh.
It says deadliness +2.
Yes, if you use a knife two-handed, you get +2 deadliness.
Okay, I agree with that.
These are Aiguchi. Yeah, these are Aiguchi, so they have the kind of Tanto handle.
So I'm gonna say +1 threat.
I'm gonna call this Tanto.
Threat +1 with one hand.
Yeah. Concealable, mundane, razor edged. I think that's perfect qualities for it. Unless you want to add a Goblin Slayer 1.
I don't think so.
Because you were saying you think knives are good at goblin slaying.
Maybe.
if you don't think so, you don't think so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. Goblin slaying 1. If anybody out there, if you have a beef with that, give us a comment. We changed a rule that we put in last stream to a new rule because somebody commented. And while we didn't agree with their comment, we got inspiration from it.
I also think Tanto should have thrown 1. Or thrown 2.
Yeah. Give it thrown 1. Range
just
1
like
to 2.
Just like an axe.
Mm-hmm.
You can throw a dagger, and it will hit the person. It is considered. I would also put in thrown. Let me put in thrown. Always considered to be held in a one-handed grip when making a throw, because it's going to use the one-handed grip profile of the weapon.
So if you notice, knives, because you renamed knife to Tanto, if you look at a lot of characters in the back, you'll see stuff like sacrificial knife for Mahosukai or Madoshi. So, like, just saying. But usually those knives have an even larger deadliness. I mean, they're pretty. I think Tanto's fine here, but we might want to create one that's like
okay, a regular knife. I completely agree. But look at Throne. I changed Throne.
Ooh,
I added a little statement saying does not gain the benefits of a handed grip style when you throw a weapon. So it doesn't get the +1 threat. It doesn't get the +1 deadliness. It just gains the profile of Throne with a range of 2. Keeps the basic statistics.
Okay. I love it. I was thinking, do thrown weapons keep all of their other properties like snaring and I'm like, yeah, of course they do. If you can find a way to throw a jite, I think if you hit another person's weapon, you could pin that weapon to like a shoji screen behind the front. I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, pinning the fan. If you have the pin the fan technique, you might be able to apply it to that because it's a martial arts range check. But jite doesn't have the thrown quality.
No, but we should make a technique that gives non-thrown weapons thrown qualities. I think that's
quality, yeah.
Like these are.
There is one. It's called what is the Sasha? What's the technique that you use? What's the technique that you use to throw your offhand weapon?
I don't.
Soaring slice.
Soaring slice.
Soaring slice.
And I throw a smaller.
Yeah. Well, that we were just talking about it though. Yeah. So yeah, jite. You could use soaring slice to throw a jite, and then you could potentially use that disarming quality, or a trident use the snaring quality because it's snaring, right? Disarming, yeah. Well, I'd say nunchaku can be used to disarm or snare because you can use that chain to grab somebody and choke them to death or something, or control an arm. So it should have basically the disarming quality. And then if wielded in 2 hands, it should have the snaring
quality. Okay.
Because then you can use the chain. And then the deadliness should be like that of a club or a hammer.
Yeah, it should be 4.
Yeah.
It should be 4.
And maybe in one-handed, since one-handed allows you to kind of extend the range, it gets +1 threat. Because you're swinging that extra side of it out.
Instead of that, I think it should be range 0 in 2 hands. Because if you're using it in 2 hands, like you're not gonna get the range to. It's good. You're in grappling range at that point.
Yes, you are 100%. I agree, but I still think threat should be +1 in one hand. Because of the extra distance you get whipping that thing around. It's not the full distance of an extra range band, but you're already hitting at range 1 and you get a +1 to threat because you're whipping that thing around really quickly. I think that's a fair trade-off there.
Okay, sure. I don't agree necessarily but we can give it +1 threat via the speed it gets.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
because
saying.
It's an unpredictable.
Around so quickly.
It is an unpredictable thing.
Yeah, I agree.
We can give it unpredictable. Let's make a new quality called unpredictable.
That just gives a weapon.
And it could be that when unpredictable, hear me out, an unpredictable weapon will give the wielder 1 threat every time they use it unless they spend an opportunity.
The wielder?
Yes.
So you take a fatigue yourself in order to wield it.
unless you spend an opportunity every time you use it, because it is such an unpredictable weapon. It might hit you back.
Do you want to call that unpredictable or unwieldy? Like difficult to wield. I don't know. Unwieldy makes it a bit, because it makes it seem like it's harder to learn how to use, but that's not the case with the system that we're working on. So what did you call it? Unpredictable? Might work better.
Yeah. So this is going to be, I think this might be contentious to do this though, because here's the thing. This is a fantasy game. You want to use nunchucks. We're not doing real. I mean, I think we're getting more towards realism, but I don't know if we want to go full bore into that. And this goes a little into that. Like, this weapon's hard. If you hit somebody with it, it might come back and hit you. Like, your control of it is not always within your. It's not always within your control. That said, It'll make people not want to use nunchucks unless we give it something really cool to counteract that. So maybe this is not a good idea.
I mean, we are giving it something cool to counteract that in a sense. Because being able to disarm and snare something is a pretty awesome combo to have. And it's going to be one of like 2 weapons that can do that. Because I think a Kusarigama should also have a similar property.
So here's the thing. How do we want to do unpredictable then? Because like giving them a threat every time you use it, unless you spend an opportunity, might seem a little too harsh. So maybe unpredictable. You get a threat if you get 0 successes.
I like that. If you get 0 successes, you get a complication that gives you a threat, and you can spend opportunity to reduce it.
How about unpredictable? You spend 2 opportunity to either add 1 lethality, 1 defense, or 1 range band. That guy's going to the moon with this.
Yeah.
Going to the moon, baby.
I do think unpredictability should have. It should be a high risk, high reward.
Yes.
It should be, if you miss with this, you could harm yourself. But if you hit with it really well and you're really trained with how to do it, you might be able to pull off something really cool.
Should be a pretty awesome upside.
So if you hit with this weapon, so it's unpredictable. You can activate a quality on your on the nunchuck without having to spend the number of opportunity equal to your vigilance. If you succeed and spend 2 opportunity. So if you succeed and spend 2 opportunity, you can either snare somebody or disarm them. But if you fail, you take threat in return. The threat the weapon generates in return.
Would you have to declare that you're doing it before? Because then you're just taking threat every round if you didn't make that. So hear me out.
Yes, you have to declare what you're trying to do ahead of time. I'm trying to snare this weapon. Because that's what you would have to do to begin with.
Unpredictability, right, is you get 0 successes, you take 1 threat, right? I think that's solid right there.
I think you should take the threat of the weapon. So 2.
But you may use bonus successes instead of opportunity to activate any quality. How's that sound?
Or actually bonus successes in addition to opportunity.
To activate any quality.
Yeah.
There's something that works.
I think that works. I still think the trade-off should be you take the base threat, not 1 threat. So you take 2 threat, because you're still risking
Okay.
hitting yourself.
You take 2 threat, sure. You're not hitting yourself actually. You're going. Ah!
You're yeah, exactly. You're pulling it away from you so that you don't smack yourself in the face.
Exactly.
You freaked yourself out for a second.
If you get 0 successes, then you take 2 threat. But you can use bonus successes to activate snaring or disarming. Thanks, Rizzo. Thanks for helping us out there.
Unpredictable. When making the an attack action with this weapon, you may add bonus successes toward opportunity. Did you just squeeze your cat?
Yeah, that was my cat meow. I put the mic in front of her.
You may add bonus successes toward opportunity costs.
Costs for 4 item qualities.
For activating, disarming, or snaring.
Just put item qualities, because we might want to use unpredictable on other weapons
that require the expenditure of opportunity.
That sounds great.
However, if you miss with this weapon, you will suffer must defend against the threat of the weapon's base profile.
Not if you miss. If you have 0 successes or explosive successes in an attack action using this weapon or item, because it might be using this weapon or item.
Yeah, it could be like a smoke bomb or a bomb.
Because we could, smoke bombs or regular bombs. We could give this quality to freaking items that aren't normally used as weapons, but now are weapons. We just give it unpredictable.
Yeah.
Right? I throw my sake cup across the room. It's unpredictable.
You could even make black powder weapons that are unpredictable.
Now you're getting it.
I'm right there with you. Okay, and then we give that to the nunchuck. Perfect. All right.
Tessin. Tessin's a big steel fan that doesn't fold. It's just
we are almost. I think we're at time.
We're at time. I'm sorry, guys. We're at time. Terry's got shit to do.
I do, unfortunately. That being said, let's do Tessin real quick so we can finish out the hand weapons, and then we can drop from there, because this should be quick. I think Tessin gets a 5 deadliness.
Ooh.
It's one-handed because they're metal spines. They're cuttable. I think there is a world in which they gain the razor-edged quality, but not on a basic item. If this was like a specially designed item, you should have a pattern that gives this razor edge.
I mean, some of them have metal spines. Some of them are just iron fans that fold out. I'm looking at
iron fans are metal. And
they are metal.
The shit out of somebody.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say give it the same as like a hammer, or like give it the deadliness of 4. Yeah.
4? Okay. I think threat 1, because they're I don't want to say unpredictable because we gave that an item quality name, but they are. You don't necessarily expect somebody to be wielding a fan as a weapon.
You're gonna give it
It's
extra
usually a
threat for
signal
every
throw.
single attack? I don't see that. I don't see that at all. I veto that.
Maybe the first attack you make with this in a combat, you get one threat,
That sounds like a
and maybe
quality. That sounds like an
and
item
that
quality.
exactly. I was gonna say that
And
might be a
Kaseru
part of
gets
the
that too.
conceal.
Then
Yeah. I think anything with the concealable property gets that. The first turn of combat, you attack
ooh,
with
we
this
want to
weapon, and if
change
it's
that from a
concealed,
concealable thing. Any concealable weapon, your first attack gets
gets +1 threat.
+1 threat. I like that. I think
Okay.
that's great. I think that's a pretty cool idea for.
I've been sitting on that one, thinking about it for a while.
Okay, I'm cool with that. I'm super cool with that. Concealable weapons get +1 threat your first attack in any skirmish or scene. And that is in addition to what it already has. All right. Is 15 Koku a good amount of Koku for that? We haven't even checking on rarity.
Yeah, the rarity and Koku is crazy.
Seven.
For these things.
They're very
7,
rare.
It's super hard to find a Tessin, and it costs you almost as much as a katana.
I think the rarity is because it's iron, but it folds. It's like
Yeah.
Are the tines the thing that are iron and not the I guess that's paper. I guess the stuff in the between is still paper. But
yeah, but the tines are metal.
Got it. Okay. I'm cool with that.
To defend against. Your attack produces one additional threat that your opponent needs to defend against.
But then I don't see why the rarity is 7 on these.
Attack, neither do I.
It makes no sense. I'm gonna bring that down to a 5. 5 rarity.
The
Nunchucks are rarity 6? No.
Normal.
Nunchucks are rarity 4. They're freaking 2 pieces of wood with a chain in the middle. What are you talking about? Yeah. Rarity 6.
Yes, I agree. I also think an Otsuchi shouldn't be 8 for a Warhammer or a Maul.
I do.
8 is ridiculous.
I think it should definitely be like 6 or 7. Those things are like, if it is a big metal piece on the end of a stick, like, you need a lot of steel for that. People aren't going to pour their resources.
But you should be able to petition your lord for an Otsuchi just as easily as you could do for like a katana or like a you're
7. Okay,
for an 8.
I will say maybe a 7.
Is an 8.
Maybe a 7. I'll say we can knock it down to a 7.
A 6 or a 7 is what I was expecting for an Otsuchi. I don't think it should be as hard to get an Otsuchi as like an Ono. It should be about equivalent.
Rarity freaking 6 for 2 pieces of wood with a chain in the middle. Sorry.
Yeah.
You can't get 2 pieces of wood with a chain in the middle.
I also think, personally, I think a scimitar, it's kind of silly to say that it's an 8, but I also get it because the katana's a 7.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know that they're as common in the Empire as a katana.
I don't think they are either.
I'd say if you're a unicorn character, maybe you should be able to get that as a 7.
Maybe that's something for when we discuss clans and things like that, and not like
I get it. Okay.
All right.
I think that's good.
We're done.
And then next time we'll pick up with polearms, unarmed, and ranged combat.
Sounds great. Hey, thank you all of you guys for checking us out, for giving us chatting us up in the chats. Love to hear from you. Make sure you make a comment on this if you're watching this as a recorded stream. And tell us what you think. We may agree, we may disagree. We may get inspiration from what you're saying. Like, we love talking to you and getting these ideas. So thanks for watching from Tarek. My name is Corey. Go roll some dice.